Well, hello everyone. Yeah, here to talk to you about Big Bird is like Big Bird and Elmo, and then along with Big Bird and Half Day coloring right here is basically talking about the fact about Big Bird, and of course with Half Day is what I went ahead and drawn right here is you got Big Bird, and then along with if what most of us here remember is like whenever we were in school, which most younger kids would hear that will be watching that are familiar with it. What you say is half days, is that days that where there will be teachers meetings, and then along with the so far as conference meetings or whatever, that the days where kids would get out of school earlier, and of course that whenever I remember whenever I was whenever I was in grade school and in elementary school, that a lot of times is they have it to where that that you would go through the normal classes, but then of course that I think the specials were canceled for the day, and then they have you take your lunch to your classroom, and then a lot of times between 10 and 11 o'clock or something like that is whenever they maybe not even that late. I guess a lot of times the elementary schools that they would let out about 10 or 11 o'clock on the half days, and with the high schools that a lot of times in the middle schools and high schools, junior highs or whatever, that they would be let out right about 10:30, 10:45, 11 o'clock. But basically about half day is one of the worst parts, of course, is half day is one of the ones that I remember, of course, was on September the 11th, and I'm sure most of us here probably of course is a day that we never forget is about September 11th is about the fact about the hijacked planes going into the Twin Towers, and along with the world the Pentagon World Trade Center, and then along with of course a field I think it was out there in Pennsylvania, but of course I still have a news article from the details from the hijacked aircrafts, and of course with the wars that have been of course going on, and of course that I remember whenever I was on the day of September 11th, which I'm sure a few of us here young kids that may have been before you were born, it's like it was near over 10 years ago that if you remember exactly where you were, but of course I remember I was in school on that day. I was in school on that day, and of course that it was a half a day actually, and a lot of people probably say that you would not expect a half a day to be like if you were working with the calculator, and then that like this one right here with working with a few numbers so far as tracing, and along with a few math problems, and then all of a sudden that you hear that a plane had struck. It's like the South Tower or the North Tower or whatever, which I think the South. If I remember, I think the South Tower that got hit first, but yeah, and then and I think the North Tower was the first to collapse. It's like so far as the second to be hit, but then the first to collapse. But so far with the September 11th that you got right there is that I remember that I was in school on that day, and I remember that I was real upset and confused about what was going on, because the fact is that which I was saying that it's were the pilots drunk or just messing around inside the cockpit? What were they doing? And then I found out later that of course that of course I remember that I met with my dad and my mom, and then of course is that of course it was over 10 years ago, but then I can still remember as if it were yesterday. But of course you got right here is you got the school, and of course one of the good things about that I remember whenever I would go to school on a half a day, other than the bad things, is the fact that getting off the school bus. You got the school bus right here, getting off the school bus, and finally getting home, and then seeing my mom, and of course seeing my dad too a couple of times whenever I was in grade school, is getting off the school bus, and they're glad to see me get off the bus, and of course it's like they would ask me questions like, well, what'd you do, what'd you learn today in school, or something like that. But they say use the green marker right here, the green as so far as for good times, and then along with black for the bad times. but then of course right here, which I'm not even going to go into details, but I'm sure it's pretty hard to look at. But of course, with the twin towers right here, is that you have it to where that you can have a little bit of details like with wherever the plane hit is like the plane would have struck at about here, then and then at that, and then right about 9, I think it was 9:45 or so a.m. and then that's whenever the flight flight number 4743 or something like that hit the other tower. And of course, is that whole thing about half days is that you just we're not even expecting something like that. I mean, the way I think about it is that we're not even expecting between these half days or full days or whatever it is, and no matter if it's a half day or if it's a full day. I mean, I did not even expect the fact that I don't think anybody has expected it's like if they were at work or at school at the time, which of course on 9/11, September 11th, 2001, that of course that was before I was even a registered voter. And of course it was not before I started wearing glasses. I've worn glasses almost all my life, and of course that never wore contacts. But I would probably say that I'm pretty grateful for what I do have, such as you say as a driver's license. But you say is that on the September 11th, which a lot of people say that day that none of us will forget. But I remember that talked about on CNN News and on the Fox News and on NBC News, on the local news, talking about the plane that hit the tower and all that. But I remember whenever I was in school that of course that wasn't in math class, but I was in this class called job seeking skills, is whenever they're helping us look for a job. But if I remember, I was in fast class, and then I went to my next class was job seeking courses, and then I went to my math class afterwards. And they still let the students out early. I guess it was not like I was living in New York or whatever, but they let us out early. And I remember that it's like that it pretty much took a lot of the plan, like whatever we were learning, and so far as school wise. But I remember that with the 9/11 on a half day that of course that's not, I did not really I know of lose a member of the family, but then of course I did lose my grandfather, which he died about 8 weeks after September 11th, and of course my dad had lost his job, and the thing about it is with half day is to know is what's considered, you say, is the gift. It's like that perfect gift for to remember. So far as if anybody cares if you're alive, everything's well, or if people are like, well, you're here and you're there. But so far as no matter if it's a depressing moment or if it's a proud moment, just think of it as like the gift of happiness. But you got right here, you got Big Bird, and then along right here is you got the Trade Center, and then along right here is with the color of Elmo. But so far with Big Bird half day is to know that half day, a half day is basically is supposed to go as that students get out of school early, and then they get to go home and have some fun. But then the teachers go to the meetings. But of course, it's that it's about learning, about the fact about to concentrate on basically the most importance. But so far with Big Bird and Big Bird half day color